Your freedom is being taxed to fund elite institutions that openly despise your value. Harvard University, with its $53.2 billion endowment, has been running what amounts to a progressive political machine on your dime. But if you stick around, you'll discover how President Trump just delivered the financial equivalent of a roundhouse kick to their ivory towers. He's frozen $2.2 billion in federal funding and threatened their tax-exempt status worth over $500 million annually. This isn't just about money. It's about whether America's prestigious universities should be allowed to indoctrinate rather than educate while you foot the bill. Let's get into it. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Look, join us tonight at 6 p.m. Eastern. Every Friday at 6 p.m. Eastern, we do a live stream. We're going to have a good time. We read interesting stories of the news week. We tweak them with a bit of humor, a dash of sarcasm, and a lot of conservative common sense. The chat is always explosive, funny. Everybody has a good time, so join us. All right, so President Trump just did something extraordinary, something that has the academic elites gasping for air like a gender studies professor who's just been asked to define what a woman is. He took on Harvard University's woke war machine, and he brought the receipts. For years now, Harvard has been playing this bizarre double game. On one hand, they're the elite brain factory, the place where America's best and brightest supposedly go to learn. But on the other hand, they've been functioning as a radical leftist indoctrination laboratory, the kind of place where American values aren't just questioned, they're mocked relentlessly. You almost have to admire the audacity. They silence conservative students with the efficiency of Soviet apparatchiks while pushing DEI rhetoric that would even make Stalin blush. And they do it all with such smug certainty. It's really disgusting. The question that nobody seemed brave enough to ask was, why should American taxpayers fund this nonsense? Those DEI programs, diversity, equity, and inclusion, they're not just annoying little campus projects. According to recent Supreme Court rulings, they're actually unconstitutional. But did Harvard care? Of course not. Constitutional constraints are for the little people, not the academic nobility perched atop their $53.2 billion endowment thrones. So what did Trump do? Well, something beautifully straightforward. He signed an executive order banning DEI policies in every single entity that receives federal funding. And yes, that includes Harvard, which has been gorging itself on billions in taxpayer dollars like a freshman in an all-you-can-eat dining hall. DEI should be spelled D-I-E because that's what happens to universities and corporations when it's implemented correctly. DEI is nothing more than government-sanctioned anti-white racism disguised as general anti-racism policies. The DEI mob favors everyone but white people while claiming that they're doing it so that white people don't target everyone but non-white people. If this sounds insane to you, it's because it really is. The problem for their argument is that it has been against federal law for quite some time now to do what they're claiming DEI is trying to stop. It's already been legally stopped, and if it happens, there are remedies already in place. But there are no remedies in place for DEI discrimination because all the judges are just as woke as the lunatics who implemented these rules and policies. Harvard's response was exactly what you'd expect from an institution that believes rules are for others. They sued multiple federal agencies, wrapping themselves in the First Amendment like it's some kind of protective cloak for their ideological games. They essentially argued that it is their right to indoctrinate students and that supersedes their obligation to follow federal law. It's crazy. Here's the thing about rights and money, though. You can't demand both unlimited freedom and unlimited funding. That's not how this works. That's not how any of this works. Trump, being Trump, didn't just issue a strongly worded statement. He froze $2.2 billion in research grants and cut off another $60 million in contracts. It's the kind of message even a Harvard professor can understand. Obey the law or pay for your own ideological hobby farm. Let's be absolutely clear about what Harvard has become. It's not really a university anymore in any traditional sense. It's essentially a glorified political action committee with fancy buildings and ivy growing on the walls. If they want to be the MSNBC of higher education, that's certainly their right, but not while they're cashing checks signed by American taxpayers who don't want their nonsense taught to wide-eyed future bureaucrats. This is the part that really gets me. Harvard has a $53.2 billion endowment. That's billion with a B. They could run their entire empire off the interest alone and never touch the principal. Yet they still have their hands out for federal money, your money, while simultaneously sneering at the values held by the very people funding them. Education Secretary Linda McMahon put it perfectly with Fox's Larry Kudlow on why this is happening. Give it a watch.
Should taxpayers continue to give money to a university that has an endowment of over $53 billion? It just doesn't make any sense, Larry. So the president's looking at their 501c3 status, and he wants them to come to the table and change things. I mean, Harvard was such a revered university, but it's not anymore. And what students are we letting in? What kind of background checks are we doing? And what kind of teachers are we letting in? I think about 3% of the faculty is conservative. The rest are not.
I'm surprised it's that good.
Yeah.
So you and the president are reviewing their tax-exempt status.
Yeah, we are. And the president, he even said the other day, hey, why would a university that would hire Bill de Blasio and Lori Lightfoot to do municipal government management?
Can you imagine? Right. Can you? In the middle of this whole discussion, they hired those two?
Yep.
The Professor de Blasio?
Yep.
Honestly?
So he's just really looking at this very closely because he thinks it's unfair to the American taxpayer to be subsidizing this.
I mean, we were told, just the last 30 seconds, Linda, we were told, the Harvard Law School spokesperson of some kind said they insist a qualification is DEI for acceptance into Harvard Law. Yep. I mean, that is just an insult.
Well, it clearly is an insult. The president made it very clear that DEI contracts, DEI programs were to be eliminated for federal funding. And so we've been doing that in education and other agencies.
And of course, she's right. It doesn't make sense. It's like Bill Gates asking for gas money. And McMahon dropped what might be the most revealing statistic in this entire story. Remember, she pointed out that 3% of the faculty is conservative. And they are absolutely despised by the 97% progressive ideologues that teach at Ivy League schools. That means your children are doomed. 3%. Think about that for a moment. 3% conservative faculty isn't diversity, guys. It's tokenism at best. Ideological purging at worst. That's not a university. That's a political echo chamber with a fancy Latin motto. Trump's plan goes beyond just cutting off the money spigot. He's calling for an annual ideological diversity audit at Harvard, which means for the first time, someone's actually going to check whether conservative students and professors are even allowed to exist on campus without being treated like they have some intellectual contagion. And if Harvard continues to behave as though it's above the law, Trump is prepared to pull their tax-exempt status entirely. That would cost them approximately $558 million a year. Not a slap on the wrist, guys. That's more of a financial neutron bomb. Harvard predictably is playing the academic freedom card by going to court and hoping for a leftist judge. But we all know this isn't about freedom. It's about Harvard wanting the freedom to run a one-party system with your money. It's about maintaining their monopoly on what constitutes acceptable thought in higher education. Trump's reforms aren't silencing anyone. They're ending the left's monopoly on the marketplace of ideas in our universities. DEI claims to be about inclusion, but in practice, it institutionalizes the exclusion of anyone who doesn't pledge allegiance to progressive dogma. The federal funding freeze is a wake-up call to every university in America. Keep pushing woke nonsense, and there will be real consequences. Dollars are real consequences. For decades, universities have mocked traditional American values while cashing government checks. They are making fun of your values, but they're going to spend your money. Now, those values are finally fighting back. America First isn't just a slogan anymore. It's policy now. And yes, the left is absolutely melting down over this because Trump just pulled the plug on their Ivy League echo chamber. First, Twitter became a place where conservatives could speak without being banished to the digital gulag. And now Harvard might have to actually tolerate intellectual diversity. The horror. But this isn't just about Harvard or even about higher education in general. It's about you, the taxpayer, the student, the parent, the professional who's tired of funding elitist activism disguised as education. If you're done watching universities transform into training grounds for angry Marxists with blue hair and pronoun face cards, this moment is for you. This is what it looks like when the silent majority finally says enough to the academic establishment. President Trump has made it crystal clear. The DEI gravy train is over. The era of universities abusing taxpayer generosity while sneering at American values, it's done. What we're seeing isn't just a policy change. It's the beginning of a fundamental realignment in American higher education. For too long, these institutions have operated under the assumption that they're entitled to public money regardless of how they behave. Trump just shattered that illusion, that assumption. This is about restoring balance to a system that has tilted dangerously toward ideological conformity. It's about ensuring that our universities are places of genuine intellectual diversity, not progressive monasteries where dissent is heresy. And most importantly, it's about making sure that your tax dollars aren't being used to fund institutions that hold you in contempt. The radical transformation of American universities didn't happen overnight, and fixing them won't either. But with this decisive action, President Trump has fired the first shot in what may be the most important cultural battle of our time. When you think about it, the fight to reclaim higher education from those who've hijacked it for political purposes. And that's something very American and something every American who values true education should celebrate. All right. Thank you for watching. Hit that notification bell if you want to be kept up to date with the latest on how the Trump administration is tackling the woke agenda in our universities. I'll see you in the next one.
Every day I'm looking for